The ICO file format is an image file format for computer icons in Microsoft Windows. ICO files contain one or more small images at multiple sizes and color depths, such that they may be scaled appropriately. In Windows, all executables that display an icon to the user, on the desktop, in the Start menu, or in Windows Explorer, must carry the icon in ICO format. The CUR file format is an almost identical image file format for non-animated cursors in Microsoft Windows. The only differences between these two file formats are the bytes used to identify them and the addition of a hotspot in the CUR format header. The hotspot is defined as the pixel offset from the top left corner of the cursor image where the user is actually pointing the mouse. History: icons introduced in Windows 1.0 were 32A. 32 pixels in size and were monochrome. Support for 16 colors was introduced in Windows 3.0, while Windows 95 introduced 24-bit RGB color space and several larger dimensions. Win32 introduced support for storing icon images of up to 16.7 million colors and up to 256 x 256 pixels in dimensions. Windows 95 also introduced a new device-independent bitmap engine. However, 256 color was the default icon color depth in Windows 95. It was possible to enable 65,535 color icons by either modifying the shell icon BPP value in the registry or by purchasing Microsoft Plus. For Windows 95, the shell icon size value allows using larger icons in place of 32A. 32 icons, and the shell small icon size value allows using custom sizes in place of 16A, 16 icons. Thus, even prior to Windows XP, a single icon file could store images of any size from 1A, 1 pixel up to 256A, 256 pixels with 16, 256, 65,535, or 16.7 million colors. But the shell could not display very large-sized icons. The notification area of the Windows taskbar was limited to 16 color icons by default until Windows ME, when it was updated to support high-color icons. Windows XP adds support for 32-bit color icon images, thus allowing semi-transparent areas like shadows, anti-aliasing, and glass-like effects to be drawn in an icon. Windows XP, by default, employs 48A, 48-pixel icons in Windows Explorer. Windows XP can be forced to use icons as large as 256A, 256 by modifying the shell icon size value, but this would cause all 32A, 32-sized icons throughout the shell to be upsized. Microsoft only recommended icon sizes up to 48A, 48 pixels for Windows XP. Windows XP can read 256A, 256-pixel icon images and larger, and it can resize them to use if no closer image size is available. Windows Vista adds support for displaying 256A, 256-pixel icon images as a separate view in Windows Explorer, and supports the compressed PNG format. Microsoft recommends that all 256A, 256 icons in the ICO files should be stored in PNG format to reduce the overall size of the file. The Windows Vista Explorer supports smoothly scaling icons to non-standard sizes which are rendered on the fly even if an image is not present for that size in the icon file. The Windows Vista shell adds a slider for zooming the icon sizes in and out. With users using higher resolutions and high DPI modes, larger icon formats are recommended. MIME type: while the IANA registered MIME type for ICO files is image VND Microsoft icon, it was submitted to IANA in 2003 by a third party and is not recognized by Microsoft software, which uses image X icon instead. Erroneous types image ICO, image icon, text ICO, and application ICO have also been seen in use. Icon resource structure: an ICO or CUR file is made up of an icon-dir structure, containing an icon-dir entry structure for each image in the file, followed by a contiguous block of all image bitmap data. Images with less than 32 bits of color depth follow a particular format, the image is encoded as a single image consisting of a color mask together with an opacity mask. The XOR mask must precede the end mask inside the bitmap data. If the image is stored in bottom-up order, the XOR mask would be drawn below the end mask. The end mask is 1 bit per pixel, regardless of the color depth specified by the BMP header, and specifies which pixels are fully transparent and which are fully opaque. The XOR mask conforms to the bit depth specified in the BMP header and specifies the numerical color or palette value for each pixel. Together, the end mask and XOR mask make for a non-transparent image representing an image with 1 bit transparency. They also allow for inversion of the background. The height for the image in the icon directory structure of the ICO file takes on that of the intended image dimensions, whereas the height in the BMP header takes on that of the two mask images combined. Therefore, the masks must each be of the same dimensions, and the height specified in the BMP header must be exactly twice the height specified in the icon directory structure. 32-bit images are specifically a 24-bit image with the addition of an 8-bit channel for alpha compositing. Thus, in 32-bit images, the end mask is not required, but recommended for consideration. Windows XP and higher will use a 32-bit image in less than true color mode by constructing an end mask based on the alpha channel if no 24-bit version of the image is supplied in the ICO file. However, earlier versions of Windows interpret all pixels with 100% opacity unless an end mask is supplied with the image. Supplying a custom end mask will also allow for tweaking and hinting by the icon author. Even if the end mask is not supplied, if the image is in Windows BMP format, the BMP header must still specify a doubled height. Outline: all values in ICO files are represented in little endian byte order. Header: structure of image directory. Referenced image data: all image data referenced by entries in the image directory proceed directly after the image directory. It is customary practice to store them in the same order as defined in the image directory. Recall that if an image is stored in BMP format, it must exclude the opening bitmap file header structure, whereas if it is stored in PNG format, it must be stored in its entirety. PNG format: the ability to read PNG images from ICO and CUR format images was introduced in Windows Vista. A PNG image can be stored in the image in the same way as done for a standard Windows BMP format image, with the exception that the PNG image must be stored in its entirety, with its file header. Icon library: an icon library is a way to package Windows icons. It is typically a 16-bit new executable or a 32-bit portable executable binary file having ICL extension with icon resources being the packaged icons. Windows Vista and later versions do not support viewing icons from 16-bit files. See also, Apple Icon Image, Computer Icon, Favicon, List of icon software, BMP file format. Notes: the classic bitmap info header bitmap format supports storing images with 32 bits per pixel. When saved as a standalone BMP file, the high byte in each pixel is not used. However, when this same data is stored inside a ICO or CUR file, Windows XP and above interpret this byte as an alpha value. Although Microsoft's technical documentation states that this value must be 0, the icon encoder built into .NET sets this value to 255. It appears that the operating system ignores this value altogether. Setting the color planes to 0 or 1 is treated equivalently by the operating system, but if the color planes are set higher than 1, this value should be multiplied by the bits per pixel to determine the final color depth of the image. It is unknown if the various Windows operating system versions are resilient to different color plane values. The bits per pixel might be set to 0, but can be inferred from the other data. Specifically, if the bitmap is not PNG compressed, then the bits per pixel can be calculated based on the length of the bitmap data relative to the size of the image. If the bitmap is PNG compressed, the bits per pixel are stored within the PNG data. It is unknown if the various Windows operating system versions contain logic to infer the bit depth for all possibilities if this value is set to 0. References. External links. Enable high-color icons in Windows 95 and later. Icon development guidelines for Windows Vista icons. Enhance Java GUIs with Windows icons. The evolution of the ICO file format. Icons.